It's week 10 in the RV, and we're excited to tell you about what we've been up to.
This week has been a lot more calm than our
Yeah.
previous couple of weeks if you've been following along. So this video may be a little shorter, but that's just because we weren't in some of the biggest national parks in the country for this week.
Right, and we absolutely adored Yellowstone, as you can tell from everything we've said before, but it was also kind of nice to move on to somewhere else. We've spent a good amount of time there, which is great, and we know that we're very blessed and lucky. Most people don't get to spend 2.5 weeks in the largest national park in the country, so we were glad we got to.
And it was also kind of nice to move away from a really cool area, because when you're in Yellowstone or in the Tetons, you feel like every second you need to be going somewhere, going to take it in. And we did spend 90% of our time doing that, but it was almost like a relief for me, at least when we left, because I was like, okay, now there's nothing we can do at night, so now we have to relax and just hang out for a night or two before we go out and do other things in different areas.
As ridiculous as it sounds, there's almost like too much to do.
Yeah.
Too many cool things, not enough time.
But on Sunday, we were still in Yellowstone and went to Mass at Lake Lodge, which was pretty much where like the employee housing is. So it was in like the gymnasium, their workout area. So it wasn't anything special, but the lodge itself there is really huge.
Yeah.
I think they have 1 or 2 restaurants in there. They have gift shops. I think it's a very popular place for people to stay inside of the park, like tourism.
Right.
So definitely cool. There's also a big like running trail. I think there was a lake right next to it too. So it was a cool spot.
From there, we went to Grant Village and stopped by the Lake Yellowstone there, had a nice picnic lunch, which we normally don't think enough to pack. So we were really glad we actually had food for once.
Our big picnic was peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and popcorn.
And then we drove on our way. We were headed like we were going to the Tetons. We didn't actually go that far, but if you recall from our entry video into Yellowstone, we mentioned there's this really cool canyon, but you're like in this RV and you feel kind of precarious, like looking over the edge. So we wanted to do it a little bit less kind of sketchy. So we drove down in the car and got to see that a little bit better, which was really nice, and continued down and also got to see Moose Falls, which is one of the many waterfalls in the park.
Moose Falls was cool, but if you're in a hurry or you got things to do, it's not a necessary stop.
I agree.
There's not much. There's a little bit of a parking lot. Not much. I mean, it's like a 3-minute walk into the trees and you see it. It is cool. So if you got time, you're looking for something to do when you're coming in, definitely stop.
Definitely not like a go out of your way to go to it. But the canyon, I really liked. If you have time, I think that would be worth doing. And it's on the spur that takes you from Yellowstone to the Tetons is where you go to see all of that.
Only complaint with that, there weren't a ton of viewpoints of the canyon.
That's true.
So probably because it was on like the main road, they didn't want people just pulling off.
Like the best way to see it is actually from your car as you drive along.
Yeah, all the viewpoints are like set off, like you don't get great views of it. So best view is from the road. From there, we went to the Black Sand Geyser Basin, which is part of the Upper Geyser Basin, I believe. And this was actually a really cool little basin. It wasn't nearly as big as other basins we've been to. I think the boardwalk altogether was maybe a half mile out and back or something like that. But there was one geyser there that went off like every 5 minutes, but like actually like erupted.
Yeah, that one's
like Old Faithful does, basically. Not as tall, but
that one's called the Cliff Geyser. It was really cool. It's another fountain geyser, which I've realized that I like, because they just kind of, it's like this flat pool and all of a sudden the water just like spurts up out of nothing, so you're not really expecting it. But that was neat. It was definitely quieter, which we appreciated. I mean, we were there on a Sunday and there was people walking around, but you had plenty of space. So one of the lesser known ones, but again, really worth it. And just around the corner from Old Faithful as well.
Yeah, and it had all the different pools with the different colors and everything like that. It's a really good warm-up if you're coming from the southeast side, I believe it is, of Yellowstone. It's a really good warm-up going into like the other geyser basins. You get to kind of get the gist, basic information on all the geysers. Yeah. So when you go to like Old Faithful and I guess Grand Prismatic, you don't have to sit there and read everything.
That's true.
Because a lot of the signs say kind of the same thing.
So on our way continuing going northwest, I think it was, we stopped by Biscuit Basin, and like we've mentioned before, this had an explosion happen. So you can't really get very close. We got just as close as you can, which was not very close at all. But Cooper has another video talking all about that and what really happened there, so you can take a look at that. After that, we continued on our way over to the Grand Prismatic Spring. So this is, like we mentioned before, one of the top things to do in Yellowstone. We actually lucked out because we got there and it was raining, which doesn't sound like luck.
It wasn't raining. It was like thunderstorm.
That's true.
Like downpouring sideways, basically.
That doesn't sound like luck, but it is like impossible to find a place to park here. So tourists were just pouring out of the basin, and we were able to find a spot like right in front of it, which was great.
And also keep in mind, it's still Sunday afternoon. So it is like prime tourism hour.
Yeah. So we just sat there and waited out the rain, and it only lasted about 30 more minutes, and then popped out of our cars, apparently with all the other tourists who had also thought this was an excellent idea. So the downside was there was like 40 of us like headed into the basin all at the same time, but we missed the rain. We got a parking spot, and it was really nice. Very, very like hazy and foggy though because of the rain.
It was actually really cool, kind of different. I know one of the springs, I can't remember. It was like Meteor Spring or something like that. I think it was one of the hotter springs in like the basin, right. And because it had all this fresh rainwater, it was like a volcano. It was so much steam. You couldn't even see the water because there's so much steam coming out of it. It was actually really cool.
It was like blowing down the whole like boardwalk.
Yeah, it was like making the parking lot foggy. It was so much steam. So it was really kind of a unique experience of Grand Prismatic, and we've driven by it and we got to see like the bird's eye viewpoint on the trail. So it's kind of a cool way to see it, in my opinion. I kind of liked it that way.
We liked getting to walk by it, yeah, like right next to it. And obviously Cooper really enjoyed getting to see all the steam. But again, if you want to see it with the actual colors, you have to hike the Fairy Falls Trail.
Yes.
You really can't see too much of the color. You can see the color that's right next to the boardwalk, which is like the orange and the yellow, but the blues and the greens, you can't see unless you're up at Fairy Falls. So
you also can't really see how big it is
unless you're
up at Fairy Falls. So there were people down who were walking with us, and they walked by and they were like, "This is it."
Yeah, we're like, it's awesome, trust us, but you have to go to other locations. So we felt like tour guides. We were like sending multiple people up there, which was fun. So after that, we headed back to our campground on 3 Mile, and we were able to see Jam again, which was fun on our way. But it might not sound like we did a lot considering it was a Sunday, but it was so much driving between everything that it took up a lot of time.
Grand Prismatic, from where we were staying, I think was 2.5 hours away.
Yeah, something like that.
I mean, we're staying, here, and Grand Prismatic was here, and there's no straight line. So it is a lot of driving. I mean, probably another 4 or 5 hours driving Sunday alone. But like we said in Yellowstone, this is what you have to do to go see everything.
On Monday, we had a pretty quiet day of work and just kind of hanging out around our campground. We spent some time in the creek nearby, and I would say that this is our favorite campground that we stayed at in Yellowstone.
Yeah, 100% in Yellowstone. It was the most...
I guess outside of Yellowstone.
Yeah, it was definitely like the most chill. They were camp hosts, but they weren't like in your business, seeing what you were doing or anything like that. Like, if something happened, they were clearly there to help. But everyone kind of kept to themselves. It was very quiet. We talked to a couple people that were walking by. People were very friendly.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was very small, very kind of felt homey almost. Like you had your own space more than other places.
And the creek was nice. We went swimming, which was fun. So we really liked that. Don't get us wrong. We really liked Baker's Hole as well on West Yellowstone. And that one definitely had the benefit of being closer to a town and also closer to some of the major attractions in the park. Whereas 3 Mile is very far from a town and does not feel very close to very many of the attractions other than the bears. But
3 Mile also doesn't have hookups.
But it was a beautiful spot.
Yeah, but it was very nice. Tuesday morning was probably our busiest day of the week. We woke up bright and early because we wanted to go see Grand Canyon of Yellowstone, because on like the first day of Yellowstone, we talked to a park ranger. She said, "Come see this in the morning with sunrise. It'll be like the best thing you'll ever see," basically.
And he was right. It was worth it.
It was amazing. I mean, we got there at probably 6 or 7.
I think we got there like 7.
And I mean, we pulled into the parking lot and there's like 2 cars.
It was like
there.
2 cars. And the previous time we had been, you couldn't find a parking spot basically.
The first place we stopped was Brink of the Lowers Trail. And this was like what seemed like maybe half a mile, 3/4 a mile, like straight downhill. I mean, like 600
switchbacks
plus
all the way
feet.
down.
Yeah, it was just like it wasn't a super intense hike as in like the steepness of it, but I mean, it was just constant. I think it took us 10-15 minutes to get down of just downhill. And then back up. You just gotta hike it all back up. But this is probably the best views of Yellowstone.
It was beautiful.
We got the entire 2 weeks we were there.
It was gorgeous. I mean, we were there so early that we were actually the only ones there, which was amazing because I'm sure if you go at a normal time of day, there's hundreds of people. We ran into a couple people hiking back up it, but whenever we were actually sitting there, we were the only ones, which was awesome and so gorgeous, stunning. You're literally standing, I mean, the name is Brink of the Lowers, so you're standing right at the edge of where the lower falls drop off, so you can see them. But the coolest thing was honestly just seeing the canyon and the sunrise. It was gorgeous, and there's like mist and fog, and it was hard to describe. It was so beautiful.
Yeah, it was. The lower falls is the bigger of the two, so the waterfall is a lot more intense than it was on the upper falls compared to that viewpoint. And like she was saying, with the sunrise coming in and all of like the steam and the mist going up through the canyon, we were there for like
stunning.
Half an hour. Didn't really say anything. We were just like, this is amazing.
Yeah.
So I took pictures. Obviously, they don't do it justice, but they did turn out pretty well.
Yeah. So we did that and then made our way back up and also hiked the Red Rocks Trail, which again is pretty steep straight down. And then you're farther down the river, so you're looking upstream to be able to see the lower falls. And we liked it, but to be honest,
cool.
I wouldn't say it was worth the hike down and then back up.
I think part of it was the first trail we did was so amazing.
Yeah.
That we were like, this is the greatest thing ever. And then we heard Red Rock Trail was really awesome as well. We went there, and by then the sun was up there. You weren't getting like the cool light from the sunrise. It was still a cool view. So if you can only do that one, like if you don't have time to do the other one, you can only do this one, I would say do it. The hike was a little shorter. I think it was a little easier too. There were parts that were really intense, but like on average, say it was an easier hike. But yeah, it wasn't quite as cool.
Yeah.
As the lower falls.
I would say my absolute favorites. We mentioned last week Artist Point. That one was gorgeous. That's a great view of the lower falls without having to have any like strenuous hiking up or down. So if that's not something you can do, Artist Point for sure.
And that one's pretty much in the parking lot. So you park, it's like 3 minutes walk and you're there.
Brink of Uppers was awesome because again you're right at the edge of that, and the waterfall is a bit closer to you from that one, so you can feel more of the mist off, and it was just really neat. And then Brink of the Lowers, I would say those are my top 3.
Yeah, I would say so too. And after viewing the waterfalls for like our second or third time this week, we decided it was finally time to leave Yellowstone. So we headed out and we were going to Cody, Wyoming, which is only like an hour from where we were staying if you're driving by car. But the speed limit was like 80 the whole way.
And our RV does not do 80.
And we were having issues with our tow dolly where the bearings were like leaking grease. So we didn't have the car on the tow dolly. And when you don't have any weight on tow dolly, it just bounces around and swings around. With the bearing already bad, I didn't want to break anything else. So we were going like 50 the whole way through.
Yes.
Luckily,
passed by many people.
Luckily, it was an amazing drive.
Yeah.
Very scenic, very worth the drive doing, honestly.
Which we weren't expecting. We didn't know that.
Yeah, so it was very, very cool. But I think it ended up taking us like 3 hours.
It took a while.
To do the whole thing. So it ended up being a lot more of a drive than we were originally hoping.
You passed by this beautiful lake. I think it's in Buffalo Bill State Park. That was gorgeous. So blue. You passed by like all these cliffs. I mean, the topography from just outside of Yellowstone on the east side to Yellowstone itself changes so fast. It's so different. It's very like Western desert in comparison to like this lush greenery that is Yellowstone. So it's a super fast change, but it was really beautiful. We loved our drive. So
we also got to drive by a wildfire.
Yes.
Which was cool. It was very contained. It was very safe. But it was kind of cool to see like the after effects of it. I believe it was a natural wildfire, so
yeah,
actually,
it was lightning caused.
Good. But so it was really cool. You could see some of the fire and some of the flames, which was, pretty unique because we've been seeing the smoke for a week now at this point.
So on Tuesday night, we arrived just outside of Cody. We were actually staying in this smaller town called Clark at a friend's place, which was great. And on Wednesday, we just kind of spent the day there. Cooper had to go into town, into Cody, to get parts for the tow dolly. But other than that, it was a pretty relaxing day around camp, which was nice. We kind of needed it after, again, all of the driving. Have we mentioned that we drove a lot? I'm not sure.
It was relaxing, except for the fact that I didn't get the right parts from the
I forgot that happened.
So I drove all the way in. It was like 45
that.
minutes into town, got the bearings, came out, and the bearings weren't the right size. But by the time I realized that, took everything apart, they were going to close by the time I got there. So then on Thursday morning, woke up bright and early to get there as soon as they opened so we could get the bearings. Because in case I got the wrong parts again, I wanted to have time to run back into town to get the right parts.
Yeah.
So, oops, my bad.
But he got it fixed, which is great.
Got it fixed. Made a whole video on it that I'll link here in case you're interested in changing the tow dolly bearings on your vehicle.
And then after that, in the afternoon, we went to Heart Mountain. So Heart Mountain is kind of a lesser known historical site, but super interesting. We're really glad we got to go. It's the largest Japanese internment camp from World War II. So just a quick history lesson, if you're unfamiliar, there was a lot of civil unrest and a lot of fear associated after the bombings by the Japanese in Hawaii. So because of that, a lot of Japanese citizens on the west side, actual citizens, some of them born in the U.S., were placed in these internment camps, basically just solely out of fear that they were spies against the nation. So there was the most at this one location. I think that there was like thousands and thousands were here at this time, and they were there for about 3 years on average. So they became these whole communities, and this particular spot, this historical museum, kind of tells you the story of what it was like and some of the experiences, some of these people and things like that. So
it was really interesting. I personally didn't really know any of this. I know there was like, civil unrest with the Japanese and everything in World War II.
We didn't give ourselves enough time there. I would recommend about 2 hours.
2 hours. I think we had like an hour and a half and we were rushed towards the end of it.
but definitely worth it. So from there, we headed to something that we would argue was not worth it, which was we went to Cody. We went to Cody and we went to the Irma Hotel, which has been having a shootout reenactment Monday through Saturday since like the 70s. And from what we hear, this used to be really good.
And it was recommended from things we read online.
Yeah.
From people we've talked to, from like books we've read. This is like one of the things to do in Cody. And we were expecting big things.
It's technically free, although you can pay $3, I think, to like rent a chair.
Yeah.
To sit in. But this has been going on for a while, basically every night of the week. So we're expecting this to be like a little bit of acting and then like a shootout. And it
like choreographed.
It advertises that it's only going to be 20 minutes. None of that is accurate.
It had to be the longest, most painful 20 minutes of any display of acting, whatever you've ever seen. And it was actually like almost an hour.
Yeah. I actually like it was so cringy. I like had to walk away. Like, well, one, I was trying to get some shopping done, but for a friend, but also it was so cringy. We're pretty sure that one of the actors was intoxicated.
Or high. And
they didn't have a script. It was like totally like off the cuff. But they do this every night.
But it wasn't like good improv.
Yeah,
it was as if me and Haley and anyone watching this just went out there and like reenact what you think a shootout would happen. And so it starts with them like at a bar and they're like, hey, we're at a bar playing cards. And then the sheriff walks in and he's like, what are you doing? And they're like, we're at a bar playing cards. And then there's like awkward silences and it was terrible.
It was like almost entertaining that it was so bad, except it was just long.
It was just way too long.
Yeah. So anyway, so that was interesting. So we were glad we didn't pay $6 between the two of us for chairs.
Oh, and then the best part, so there's like 45 minutes of build up for this huge shootout.
I've left at this point.
Haley left, and I'm sitting here by myself. It's kind of raining under a tree. And all of a sudden they start shooting, and the shooting lasts like 10 seconds. It's like everyone fires off their guns as fast as they can, and then it's over.
Yeah.
So it was an experience. If you are trying to get the true experience of like bad tourism, I would say go. I'm glad we did it for the sake that we can say we did it. However, I'm not going to go back and watch it.
No.
Again, so.
One of the things we didn't do in town is like the Buffalo Bill Center of the West. I think if you're looking for real Western feel, that's probably a place to go. We didn't happen to go there, so we can't speak to it much, but it's probably going to be a bit more Western than the shootout at the Irma Hotel. On another Western front, after that, walked around Cody just a little bit, but everything had mostly closed. And then we headed over to the Cody Night Rodeo, which happens basically every night in the summer. I'm not sure exactly what month it starts or ends, but almost any night of the week you can hit up the night rodeo. It was awesome.
It was amazing. The best rodeo I think we've seen. It was like the best organized. You had the best viewing. There weren't actually a ton of like contestants compared to other rodeos we've been to, but that's because this one happens every single night. And the other ones we've been to are like, this is our one rodeo of the year. So everyone who can compete does. So it was really actually only like an hour and a half.
Yeah, it was pretty short, but it was like nice. You didn't feel like it was overly short, I would say.
No, not at all.
And it was fun. You had people who were really competing. You had some like younger kids who were just learning, including a 4-year-old who was like learning how to do barrels. So it was like her on her like bouncing around on her enormous horse, and then her dad's like holding on to her from his horse like on the side of her. And then every time she would like turn away with the crowd, she like looked like she was about to fall off. It was so cute.
Yeah. So it was really fun to watch. Great energy.
Yeah. But she was cute.
Yeah, but I mean the whole rodeo just had like great energy.
Yeah.
The announcer did a great job.
Yeah.
Like explaining what was happening. You know, they always explain like the rules, like, okay, like this bell means this is how long they're trying to stay on the bull. So we got to see bull riding that was really cool, but not cool for the bull rider.
Yeah. One guy like fell off and then got like jumped on by this bull. I mean, I'm sure he's fine now, but he might have broken a rib or two. Yeah,
and then he got dragged for a little bit, and then the bull was going crazy and like flipped one of the rodeo clowns people, and it was really
authentic.
It was really authentic. I don't want to say cool to watch because that sounds bad. Everyone was okay. Like everyone got up and walked away.
Yeah.
So like no one got like seriously hurt right there, which is good
impressive.
To know.
It was impressive to see one like the ability of the rodeo clown and the rodeo rider just to like walk away from all of this, and the things that they're willing to put themselves through in the first place, and also just to see the strength of the bull. So I would say it was impressive. It's a good adjective for that one.
Yes.
And fun fact, the food was surprisingly good. So
and actually not terribly expensive. We got the barbecue pork nachos, and they were phenomenal in my opinion. And the beer was like $3-4 a can, so good price on the beer too. Then on Friday, woke up and drove the RV and everything over to Billings to the airport to fly out because we were visiting some of Haley's friends.
So we are going to kind of take a hiatus from the RV for the next couple of weeks. We're doing something a little bit different. So as we go forward, we'll tell you about that. Obviously, we're in the RV now, but we stopped by Dallas to go see one of my great friends and her daughter and her whole family because her daughter was turning 2. So it was super fun. They live in Dallas, which was really convenient for us to fly from. Apparently, we were able to just like park our RV at the airport in Billings. We weren't really sure, but it worked out great.
For free.
For free.
Which is amazing.
Yeah. But we were in Dallas on Friday. We landed there Friday afternoon, just kind of spent some time with them. And then on Saturday, continued just to hang out in their area. Went to the splash pad at the farmer's market, which was excellent with a 2-year-old. Did a lot of coloring. Walked around the University of Dallas, where my friend's husband goes to school. So, yeah, it was a great trip.
Did lots of coloring and lots of book reading.
So we'll be in Dallas for the next couple of days. And then we are also going to Florida for a couple of weeks to see a lot of my dad's side of the family.
So that was everything we did in week 10. The couple weeks next are going to look a little different with our weekly recap. I think we might group it into one video. So follow along to see what happens next. And thank you for watching.